Dragon Time. A short story by Paul McCann. It was many years ago when an ancient tribe saw a fireball race across the sky and land on the top of Mount Zen. A huge crater had been left where the fireball had crashed, and it was from that moment on regular volcanic activity was seen and heard. The tribes that lived around the mountainside were herdsmen and farmers. They made a good living by selling livestock and crops to the larger communities who lived further down the mountain in the valleys cradled between Mount Zen and Mount Zeit. As time passed, more and more volcanic activity was occurring and livestock was disappearing. The mountain tribes were worried, and it was decided that they would leave their mountain home and move further down into Fisher Valley, where it was said to be peaceful and safe to live. Time passed and Mount Zen had not erupted, but no one dared go anywhere near the site, just in case. For every now and then some smoke and fire billowed out from around the volcanic edge of the crater. This activity on top of Mount Zen was due to a very exceptional and rare event called Ernesto's Breath. Every now and then fire and smoke would shoot up into the sky from the top of the mountain, and rocks would tumble down the mountainside. Then the ground would start rumbling as if the volcano was about to erupt. Then suddenly it would all come to a stop. This activity was the work of one very clever dragon called Ernesto, who lived inside a cave on the side of the mountain. He had lived there for a long time, and although Ernesto was very lonely, he knew he had to keep people away. Then there was this young girl called Jill, who was just about 10 years old when both her parents got very sick. So they took Jill for a long walk up the mountain paths, and one morning Jill woke up to find that she had been abandoned on the mountain. Jill ran to the mountain's edge and she called out, "Mama! Dada!" Her echoes just rang out, but no one answered. Again and again she called for help. But no one ever came. She wondered why her parents had left her. She started to get hungry and found satisfaction in wild berries and herbs that grew on the mountain. She got milk from the goats that came to her and rested at night on grassy shoulders. She remembered how her parents used to rub sticks together to make a fire, and soon learned how to do the same. As weeks passed, she discovered how to catch fish with her hands in the mountain streams, for if she sat patiently and quietly on the banks with her hands in the shallows, sometimes a fish would swim right over her hands, and then, very quickly, Jill would scoop out the fish onto the bank, where she could cook the fish, wrapped it in thick leaves over the fire. It was a nice treat, and the water from the mountain streams was so cool and refreshing. One day there, out of the blue, she heard the stumping and banging and bumping, and slowly and quietly she made her way over to where the noise was coming from. She was amazed to find this dragon there, jumping up and down on the ground. Jill climbed up into the branches of a tall tree that grew nearby, and she watched on in wonder as the dragon picked up large rocks with one of its claws and began to throw them over the edge of the mountain. She was mesmerized by all of the goings-on, and what an incredible sight it was when Ernesto suddenly breathed fire out of his mouth. Jill had no fear, This was the most exciting thing that she'd ever seen. Ernesto lifted another huge rock in its claw, and as if the old tree had just give way over the years, the brittle branch snapped that Jill was sitting in, and she fell down to the ground with a thud right in front of Ernesto, who got so startled that he dropped the large rock from its claw and fell right on top of his other foot. He let out this very loud shriek sound and started to hop around on one foot. Ernesto went, making this funny kind of dragon sound. Jill thought it was so funny and started to laugh. Lost his balance and tripped over, banging his head on the tree that Jill had been sitting in. Now he was rubbing his sore head and hopping about on one foot, crying out with a weird sound. Jill couldn't control her laughter and kind of bent over in a fit and was rolling around on the ground, kicking her legs in the air. Ernesto looked at her, and in that moment it struck a chord with him. The fact that they were at ease in their company with one another, and that Ernesto soon started laughing, as dragons do, with smoke and fire pouring from his mouth. Both of them were laughing uncontrollably, and when they finally stopped, Jill said, So, what's with the rock throwing and the hopping and the bumping? Ernesto replied, Well, I was pretending to be a volcano, came the reply, which made Jill start laughing again. Why a volcano? Are you rehearsing for a part in a movie?
No, silly. It's so people stay away,
said the dragon, and Jill replied, Right then, so you're frightened of people? The dragon replied,
Wouldn't you be? We dragons learned a long time ago not to trust humans.
Yeah, I heard about those olden times. Sorry, it's not my fault. What's your name?
I'm called Ernesto, and I don't need anyone coming up here disrupting things and interfering with my signal.
Jill looked puzzled and said, I'm Jill, Ernesto. So do you have a television set up here?
No, Jill, the signal is from my spaceship to my home planet,
the dragon replied. Jill walked over and stood close to Ernesto, who lay down, looking into Jill's eyes. I thought dragons were earth creatures, she said, and Ernesto replied,
Well, you thought wrong. When we first arrived on Earth, or as you call it back in the olden days, we didn't come to inhabit your planet, but we came to observe and monitor your progress as a species. But we were not made welcome and left with an option to return every now and then.
How can I tell your story to people on Earth? The dragon snorted smoke from its nostrils and said,
Forget it, Jill. It was all tried before.
Jill sat down on the dragon's foot.
Oh!
The dragon cried out. Jill jumped back in fright and said, Sorry, Ernesto. I didn't mean to sit on your sore one.
That's all right, Jill,
said the dragon, who reached out its claw. Jill sat down on the claw and said, But if I explain to people about what you're doing now and how wrong we have been about your kind, maybe we could work together. The dragon replied,
The olden days have left too many scars. It's better we leave things the way they are.
A strange beeping sound nearby began to get higher and higher and louder farther on up the mountain. What's that? Jill asked. Ernesto looked excited and replied,
At last, I've been waiting for an answer for so long. It's communication back from my home base. I've got to go.
I want to come. Take me with you, Jill said, and the dragon replied,
Climb on my back and hold on to my scaly skin. You'll find it's quite sticky.
It was very sticky, and Ernesto took flight, and Jill screamed in excitement. The dragon flew higher and higher until it was right at the top of the mountain Zion, and there he descended into the crater of the volcano. Deep inside the hole was the dragon's spaceship. It was huge and very futuristic. Jill was so amazed and said, "Wow! Everybody I know thinks it was a fireball that landed here."
No, it was my spaceship. My ship went out of control when I entered your atmosphere, and it started to burn up. So when I crash-landed on top of this mountain, I realized it was going to be stranded here for a long while.
This is ZZ4 calling QC3. Ernesto, are you receiving? Beep, beep, beep. Ernesto stood outside the hatch door of the spaceship, and it opened up automatically, and they both went inside. Ernesto stood beside a transmission panel and flicked a switch with its claw.
ZZ4, this is QC3. At last, we're online now, receiving you and switching over to ship's computer now.
Thank you, QC3. This is Grandsor at ZZ4 receiving you, Ernesto, and awaiting transfer from your ship's logs and database. We'll be dispatching a rescue mission to your coordinates immediately.
This is QC3. Thank you, Grandsor. I was beginning to think I'd be spending the rest of my days as a volcano on this rock.
Jill was laughing in the background.
This is ZZ4. Do you have someone with you there? This is QC3. Affirmative. I have an earthling species on board.
This is ZZ4. What is the purpose of this passenger?
QC3 here. ZZ4, please check the history quest statement that was put in place by your predecessor, who stated that if I came across a native from this planet who was willing to return, that we should oblige and place on the BW program when I return.
ZZ4, that should be okay. I'll arrange for that, and we'll see you soon. Transmission will switch now to your ship's computer before leaving Earth. Begin the self-destruct mechanism on board your ship.
This is QC3. I'll do that, ZZ4. Transmission ending in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Jill was astonished and said, "That was so cool, Ernesto. What's a BW program?"
Ernesto replied, Nothing, just routine, Jill. It's a question and answer procedure that gives us the opportunity to get to know you and for you to get to know us a little bit more. We do it on all our things, all the time."
"When do you expect the rescue ship to be here?"
Jill asked. And the dragon replied, "It's actually here now. You see, we have a spacecraft that create holes in space by bending light, which means we can travel really, really fast. Are you ready to come with me for a ride through space?"
"I sure am."
Ernesto punched in the self-destruct code into the onboard computer, and as he did, another spaceship appeared outside the crater. "Let's go, then," said Ernesto. As they abandoned the ship, lights on the computer panel began to flash with a countdown sequence. "Warning, you have initiated the self-destruct process. Please vacate ship now." Ernesto and Jill made their way from the ship and were soon on board the other spacecraft. As the rescue ship lifted itself away from the crater, the ship that was left behind started to glow bright red. They hovered high above Mount Zen until they saw what looked like a volcano erupting, and in that moment they split a passage through space on a ship built for time travel.
In a short time their ship landed on a planet that seemed just like Earth, and when Jill and Ernesto stepped out of the spaceship, they were met by a number of dragon-like creatures. Some were small and white, like little dogs. Others were huge and green, like dinosaurs. Overhead, some red flying dragons hovered above the ground, and up above, their blue crescent-like suns glowed through a fluffy orange-coloured cloud. Jill was greeted by a white dog-like dragon who welcomed her to planet Tranquilla. Everyone made Jill feel at home. She was given the royal treatment, and after a beautiful meal they brought her into a place for her BW program. Jill was introduced to 3 strange two-legged dragon-like creatures.
Hello, Jill. We are glad to have you here and welcome you to the BW program. Trust us, you're going to have a great time.
What are you going to do to me? She asked.
Well, we are going to place you inside a capsule, then put you into the BW scanner where you will be able to see exactly who we are and what we expect of you and what you can expect to happen when you return back to Earth.
Jill was placed inside a BW capsule that closed up, and in a few moments everything about Jill had become clear. Her life experiences so far were all being beamed and shown on various monitors. And just then, a few very special creatures emerged from a lift that descended from the ceiling. These beings were shining so brightly, and as they looked into the capsule, they spoke in thoughts to Jill, who understood everything they said. And after that, Jill slowly went unconscious. When Jill woke up, she saw she was sitting back in her parents' room in the little home in Fisher Valley, where she had no reflection or recollection or idea of what had just happened. Jill's parents were happy and healthy and never complained about life at all. Jill grew up quickly in a community who respected her enormously, as she was one of the most gifted and academic students that had emerged from Fisher Valley. And at a young age, Jill soon began her research in discovering ways to bend light, and was soon making progress with her navigation and experiments in space travel and mapping out the solar system. And from that moment on, life in Fisher Valley had become a different place. In fact, in Dragon Time, it was things that once happened a very long time ago.